Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get right to this here. Now, today's guest, by the way, let me just tell you something. I did this episode a while back. The stuff that we talk about is still very relevant. We're so lucky that we're so far ahead in terms of laying down these episodes. Believe it or not, there was at one point where I thought, we might have to kill the show. I really did. We were having trouble getting bookings, and then I hired an ISA and everything changed. And now we're swimming in content. Now, today's guest has an interesting story. He was a builder. He was a house builder and got tired of taking a bunch of risk, risking a bunch of money, spending 8 months building a house, only for the realtor to come in, sell the house, and make not that much less than he did. He was tired of that. So he got his license to sell his own inventory and then realized, hey, this is a path for me. So what we talk about on the show is, or on this episode, I should say, we go over a ton of nuggets. Now, some of these are going to be reminders for you. Other ones or other nuggets are going to be new for you because, everybody kind of delivers it in a unique way. So I think you're going to take a lot of notes. So get a pen and paper ready. Let me start this off with, as you guys know, there's no silver bullet in creating a successful business. And we talk about that. We talk about why you should have a FSBO and expired channel. Now, you guys have heard that before. This guy was late to the party in so many things, but he still made it work. And I break that down and make him unpack why he was late. And while some of these things may be obvious, how he made them work for him. We talk about why you should be creating systems from day one. He built a business so successful that it outran him, and it started to break down because he didn't have systems in place. And I got to tell you, I'm experiencing this right now with our radio arm, Real Estate Radio Experts. We started onboarding a client every week, and all of a sudden, man, it was just sales. And all of a sudden, we got really, really overwhelmed because we didn't create systems. So if you have systems or you don't have systems, I encourage you to start building them right now. We talk about why you as a salesperson should have crazy tenacity. We've all heard fortunes in the follow-up. And he shares with us what's his philosophy on following up and how he does it, how often he does it. He will say that, no one ever loses a lead because of too much follow-up. So, welcome to Super Agents Live. This is the one place where you can come and hear the most successful people in real estate. You'll hear how these super agents built their businesses, how they stay productive, and how they stay motivated. Who am I? My name's Toby Salgado, and I made my first $1 million in real estate. Yeah. And I'm your host for the next 30 minutes while we talk to yet another amazing real estate entrepreneur. Stay tuned.
Let's go! Yeah!
Okay, a little housekeeping. Hashtag for the show, unpack that idea. My Twitter handle, @Super Agents Live. I'd love to meet you out on the Twitter. And by the way, use that hashtag and I'll follow you. And I encourage our little world here, our little people, our little community to follow one another, share to one another, and learn from one another as much as you can. I know you guys do not want to miss future episodes like this, so I would encourage you to go to Super Agents Live, download my free ebook, and you're going to you'll get on the list of kind of like the insiders. There's many things I share with that list that I don't talk about openly on the airwaves here. Okay, look, we got to keep our lights on. Got to keep the lights on. We've been doing this show a year and a half. Two things. Real Estate Radio Experts. Listings are where it's at. Gary Keller will tell you that. So the easiest way to get listing leads is radio. It's a proven method, path to success. Go to realestateradioexperts.com. Check out some of my videos and hit if you think you're ready. Maybe you are, maybe you're not. But fill out the getting started sheet, and you and I can have a chat. Lastly, as I've been talking about this for the last week or so, Facebook for real estate agents. You guys are on Facebook, but most of you guys are not using that tool, that platform to its full extent. We're creating a product specifically for you guys. Everything from creating a fan page and getting your first 100 likes. That's pretty basic, but not everybody knows how to get those likes. And then how to retarget people, retargeting with ads, how to write ad copy, use of images, creating custom audiences, creating lookalike audiences, all that stuff. So our first 100 units, the deal I made with you guys, first 100, $197. The next 100, $297. Then we're going to cap at $397. So if you want to get in on the early pricing, send me an email and let me know. All right. Hey, let's get to it. Today on the show, I'm excited to talk to today's guest. As you guys know, we are taking more of a geographic approach lately. And today's guest is in Springville, Missouri, right in the middle of the country. Today's guest, his team size, he's got 7 total. Now, we're going to dig into this a little bit because he's 7 total people. 3 of those people are agents, but 4 of them are admin. I'm curious to know why he's built it like that. Last year, he did 255 transactions for a total of $50 million. I'm thrilled to welcome Dan Holt. Hey, Dan, thanks for taking the time out, man.
Thanks for calling.
So listen, I want to get into your business. I know, you want to talk about how you lead handling, lead management, all those sorts of things. But before we get to the business, I'm always very curious as to the man behind the machine. So take a minute, tell us a little bit about yourself personally, and then we'll get into what you're doing today.
Perfect. So actually, I got into real estate when I was about 16. My dad used to drag me out to old rental houses and used to force me to, I was essentially free labor. And I swore I'd never have anything to do with houses again in my life. So went to college to find a real job and realized that I could make more money in real estate. So I started by building, and economic collapse in the housing industry kind of drove us out of that. And so I got my license to essentially sell my own real estate is how I started. And I basically turned work away for 2 years. So then I just gave a run at it.
So, okay. So your dad was a realtor?
No, actually.
He was a rental guy?
Just supplemented retirement with rental houses.
Got it. Okay. And so you're a free labor. He was making you sweep stuff up, and you didn't like that. And so you went to college, and then as I understand this, Dan, so then you started building houses. Is that?
Yeah, that's right. For myself,
Wow.
Probably a little looser licensing restrictions than probably the rest of the country in Springfield, Missouri. So, basically, if you had a cell phone and a Rolodex, here you could build houses.
Interesting. Okay. And so you're building houses, you're giving, you're putting all this blood, sweat, and work into building the house. You sell the house, and then you realize, holy smokes, the real estate agent that I just hired to open the door is making a ton of money in terms of time
Correct.
and effort. Okay.
Yeah, with no risk.
No risk. What a brilliant model.
No, it's a genius. I hated it when you're on that side. I love it now.
Yeah, for sure. So what did you do? So how long were you building houses, Dan?
Just about 5 years. Okay. I was a young guy. I was about 23, so about 20. So I guess I'd say about 5 years before the 07, 08 meltdown.
I'm sorry. So the 08 Lehman Brothers, that took you out of the building. Okay, I get it now. So it's possible that if Lehman wouldn't have happened, and that you would have still stayed on the building side of things. Yeah.
I had no reason other than essentially the market just disappearing. I had no reason not to. It was we were actually doing great, and the business model with the realtors, I joke, they literally just opened the doors.
Yeah.
But I didn't have time to go swim. We were literally, keep in mind it was just me, but we were doing 35 houses a year. I was happy.
Man.
I was happy. It was, I was content. I didn't know any better. I was 28 years old and I was making money.
Well, listen, that's a very successful 28-year-old, man. Turning 35 houses. Now, were you going full on ground up?
Yep. Custom spec market, anything we could touch.
Wow.
Yep.
And then, so I guess money was easy to come by, because I was just, the next step for me is going, geez, how does a 28-year-old get that kind of financing? But local banks out there, it was easy money. So,
right. Yeah, it's right. It's still mom and pop banking here.
So what did you do? I'm curious. So now you get a license. You're going to sell real estate. What are some of those first steps? How did you go about building your list and getting this off the ground? Because if '08 took you out, that means did you start in '09? When did you actually start selling real estate?
Started selling real estate in 2009. So this is the end of my 5th year.
Okay, yeah. So '09. I mean, listen, that was dark days. Nobody knew how long it was going to last. So, I mean, what did you do? Did you focus on short sales? What did you do in '09? How'd you start out?
Well, so motivation is the great innovator, I guess, here. At the time I was married, keep in mind I was all in real estate, so, the sales just stopped. Now, we didn't lose anything, fortunately, so, but we were able to liquidate essentially everything that we had in inventory. And it literally came down to that business was losing about $25,000 a month, and it literally came down to, there was no reason to be proactive and build anything new because we were still liquidating what we had.
Yeah.
So I got my license, like I said, just to sell my own stuff, and then I thought, that's the reason I got it was just, I was basically giving myself a 3% pay raise or a 6% pay raise across the board.
Yep.
Which, over 30 houses was a big deal to us. So what we transitioned into was it literally came to there was essentially no work in our market, no work. All the subcontractors had left. General contractors were hanging contractors were hanging subdivisions. They were hanging, all these houses on these banks. And there was, and of course, the prices just dropped out. I couldn't compete with even other new construction that was on the market because it was already being slashed, 20, 30, 40%. So I couldn't compete with that. So long story short, I came in and sat in my office. I kind of had this little breakdown of, okay, I've got a wife. I have 3 kids, 2 in diapers. I got one choice.
Scary, man.
I can buckle down and do the things that nobody else is willing to do. Or I can walk into the bank just like, 90% of the other builders have done and figure out some liquidation escape plan. And I wasn't willing to do that. It's like I said, it's a small town.
Right.
I know all my bankers. I see them at basketball games. I see them at, I don't mean to make it sound we're 300,000, so we're not terribly small, but it's a small enough town. It's a big little town here, so everybody knows everybody. So that wasn't an option for me.
Okay, well that's good, man. You got some integrity there. Why? I'm just curious. I want to get into what's working for you in selling real estate, but just for me, why you got your license? You're getting rid of. You gave yourself a 3% pay raise. You're selling your own stuff. How come you didn't get into flips in '09 and in 2010?
So I did. I played with that a little bit, naturally with the contacts I had.
Yeah.
And we did a handful here and there. Of course, keep in mind when that first started, I wasn't liquid enough at that point in time.
Got it.
And I was still scared. We still didn't know where the market was going.
Yeah.
Then. And it was doomsday. It was, is it bottom? Is there going to be a bottom?
Right.
Where is the bottom? And I sure wasn't jumping back in full-fledged at that point. Got
it. Okay, so I get it. I get your mindset at this point, right? You got these 2 little kids, and you did not want to carry right. You saw owning real estate as a giant weight on your back. Okay.
At that point in time, it was a cancer to me.
Yeah. Okay, so what did you do? So now you're selling real estate. How did you start? What did you do to go and build a list and really start selling not your real estate but other people's real estate?
So right off, I initially had a lot of contacts just because I had been in the building business.
Okay.
And essentially, I guess we all know, or I assume everybody knows that basically what we have to do as realtors is, find a transaction, find something that either needs to sell, wants to sell, find somebody that wants to buy or needs to buy, and find a way to throw ourselves in the middle. So what I tried to do initially right off the bat was I believed in the market. I believed in the values that were there. I believed in the entering the market, as you said, the flip market, the spec market, or not the spec market, the buy and hold market. So I found a way to throw myself in front of those who wanted to. I had a lot of bankers contact me because keep in mind I wasn't. I was a ex-builder who hadn't gone out of business and who hadn't hung into the banks or anything. So all the banks started calling me initially for probably a year to finish all these builder walkaway projects, all these projects these builders walk away. So I struck a deal with these banks, and I sold about 40 houses, and this was my big start, really, was kind of the blending of the two. Now I'm not in the other one at all. But bank contacted me and said, hey, Dan, we know you've built. You're the only builder that hadn't hung us with anything. We have 26 builder foreclosures to finish. Would you be willing to finish them? I said, sure, I'd love to finish them. My normal rate's 12% above cost to finish them. I'll charge you 10%. I get to list them and sell them. And they said, that's genius. So right there, I had an inventory of 25 houses.
That's great. That's the first time I've ever heard something like that happen. I'm sure in most markets that you couldn't do that. So that is a genius idea. So all of a sudden you get you get in there now. Earlier you said that all the subcontractors had left. Did you? Yeah. What did you do? You had 26 projects. Were you out there cutting tile and No.
So naturally, some of them hung around. Some of them just didn't have work to do.
Okay. You hire them cheap.
It was easy. It was cheap and they were easy to find.
Okay. Yeah. Now let's get past that. So now what? You get rid of those 26. How did you transition yourself into real estate full time?
Perfect. So first thing I realized is that that kind of kept going, and these banks kept coming to me with stuff, and kind of like I said, their kind of escape plan. And I decided, and I was running both. And so what I had to decide, and this was kind of my turning point, I think, is I went to a class. It was a KW class. It was called Mega Agents down in Austin. It goes on every year in the fall, and I just was sitting there, and it kind of just slapped me that I need to actually make an effort of selling real estate. Like we said earlier, the risk reward plan from building, possibly losing versus selling real estate. It's just not. It wasn't a good economic model for me at the time. So I just decided to make a full-on effort. Essentially, I subbed out the general contracting and basically just skimmed a little bit. On basically passing on a referral for finishing the bank stuff, and then I just started selling them. I jumped in full time, and I basically haven't touched building since. And I have any build jobs that I have now, I just contract. I just pass on to somebody else, and they pay me a referral fee for it. And so, but my big kind of launch, I guess, out of that was realizing that I can't wear three hats at one time. If you want to be a master at anything, you've got to dump everything else. They were just becoming distractions. I wasn't very good at either one of them at that point in time.
Right. So again, here's what I'm trying to get at, Dan, is so if I look at what you're doing, what you were doing, right? You did it for yourself, then you did it for banks, and it was sort of like a B2B thing here, right? This B2B play happening. Real estate is very much a consumer-facing product, service, all that. And basically, you're in retail, but your product is houses. What did you do? And did you go build a farm? Did you grab a niche? I want people to go, oh, hey, maybe I can do that. I want some.
Right. No. Yeah. Everybody wants the magic wand or the magic bullet of real estate. I operated the premonition that there isn't one. Here's what we did essentially. Keep in mind that not knowing essentially where your next paycheck coming from, or not knowing at that point in time if you have money for next month to survive, is a great motivator, right? For some, it buckles some. So what we essentially did, my tactic at that point in time, keep in mind that I didn't have a lot of money, was essentially get as many listings as I can. I've always been a believer that he who with the most listings wins, period. And my response to that initially, until I leveraged some of this off, was I get a phone call. I set up, it's nothing genius and it's free. I set up a Google Voice number for my signs. So I knew anytime anybody was calling me off a sign, because that's the only place that number was. So, I just transferred to my cell phone. My ears perked up. I knew that it was a sign call. I knew two things. Number one, I knew they were in the subdivision, whatever subdivision this listing was in. And I knew they were sitting in front of the house. So two objections that a buyer typically has about a house have already been overruled. They have, number one, they've accepted the subdivision. Number two, they've accepted the front of the house, the curb appeal. And I literally knew they were sitting in front of the house. And it was just simply getting them in that house that minute. So I had this, honestly, this was my initial tactic. This is as sound as my business strategy was at this point in time in my career. It was just literally, I will run faster. I will get in front of more people than anybody else, and by getting in front of them, our conversion rate goes through the ceiling when you get in front of somebody and have a face-to-face.
Yeah.
That was my goal at that time. It was just find a way to get in front of as many people as I can. Like I said before, find out how to throw myself in the middle of as many transactions as possible.
Okay, so real quick, tell everybody, how did you? So when you get a Google Voice number, how did you know? Did you attach that Google Voice number to a different ringtone? How did you know that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can forward that to any number that you want to. So the old school way was that a lot of agents would have what they called around here they just call it bat phone. So agents would have literally a cell phone they would pass around for call duty, I guess, if you will.
Yeah.
So you can take a Google Voice. GoogleVoice.com is, you can go in, you can put in an area code, and then it will find a number for you available. And then I put that all on my sign writers, and then you can forward that to whatever phone number you want to. So I just forward it to my cell phone number.
Right. No, but right. So,
I'm sorry.
But my question to you, Dan, is when you forward your Google number to your cell phone, your cell phone just rings. So when you answer it, it beeps. It beeps and it says you have a Google Voice. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Press 1 to accept, 2 to send a voicemail. So as soon as I heard that, it's game on. Your ears perk up.
Okay, so that helps you. Okay, that helps you with your tracking. So, but normally when people, you want to get in the middle of as many transactions as possible. I think for most people, it's much easier. You have to be more deliberate to find a listing lead rather than find somebody who wants to buy.
Right.
So, what sort of things how are you deliberate about getting on the listing side of things?
So at that point in time, keep in mind it was a buyer's market. So I knew that I didn't necessarily want to, at that point in time, the listings would come from the introductions, but I was trying to get in front of as many people who were immediately ready to transact right now.
Okay.
That naturally developed into, I essentially don't deal with any buyers now, so that naturally developed into a listing-based business. So our first strategy, like I said, from that naturally came we'd love to buy this house, but we have a house we need to sell conversation, which would naturally roll straight into, great, what time do you want to meet? Tomorrow at 3 or Thursday at 5. It's up to you, So we'd have those conversations, and essentially it was just an introduction to somebody. It was just a way to get in front of as many people as possible. So our next strategy really became, So we all know that whenever you have signs out there, that means more calls, that means more internet leads, more internet traffic, et cetera. So our next move was we were literally getting so many sign calls and internet leads, I had to hire somebody to handle just those. And so in that, I made a position that I didn't even have a name for it, but I essentially got a speed dialer. And we started going through for sale by owners and expired. It was a market that a lot of houses were expiring in. So we had a list of, for our market, 20 to 30, new leads every day. And we blew them up. And we told them we're not going to stop calling until you either relist with somebody else or, I'm kidding. But,
Right.
But, we just bugged them until finally they either gave in and said, if we let you come out here, will you stop calling us? Sure. Or we just actually converted them, and that's essentially been our business model. Now, yes, we do farm. Yes, we do. We do all those things typically people do, but by far our highest success ratio is our for sale by owners and our expired.
Still.
Yep, absolutely.
Is it because Springfield? You're I hate to say this, but is it because you're? This is kind of common, right? Are they just not sophisticated in Springfield, Missouri? I mean, that's because I don't.
Oh, I'd absolutely no. No offense taken. Number one, I'll lead it with saying we have never yet quite hit a seller's market. We've been close to a balanced market, or we've been on the front side, but we kind of keep pulling back a little bit. Springfield's not a destination location. We don't have, large corporate America here. We do, we got some of that stuff, but it's not our big driving, do you know anybody lives in Springfield, Missouri? No. So it's the same thing. We have a really low cost of living. Our average sales price, in the board is $150,000. It's just not a destination location. So I think we had more expires because I think obviously these sellers markets are probably going to have less, expires than most, but yeah, we were the first one here in town that was doing it. Technology, we're a wee bit behind the curve, maybe.
Got it. Okay, so you were ahead. Okay, that's what I was getting at. It's because that's interesting. That is very, very interesting. Even I don't know was this? Is this it's 2010? When did you stumble upon? Okay, we're gonna do an expired and FSBO channel.
Well, I would I would say probably beginning of 12. Now I had always sat and done it myself.
Okay.
Just by the good old fashioned, essentially not rotary dial, but just touch tone phone. But it wasn't until the beginning of 2012 that we found a speed dialer with somebody to dump all that info in for us. So all we had to do was hit play, and we were in front of 40 people.
And who do you use? Do you use like Land Voice Data or Redex?
We use Vulcan.
Vulcan. Okay. Uh-huh. Let me break in here with a message from somebody that kind of sponsors the show. Land Voice Data. I recommend those guys. I endorse those guys. They will let you try this service for free. No obligations, no nothing. They'll give you 2 weeks if you call them and say, hey, man, listen, I listened to the show. People have gotten back to me and said, hey, look, they gave it to me for a whole month. So go to landvoicedata.com/superagentslive, sign up there, get your free trial, and let me know how it goes. There's no reason not to do this. There's no reason not to have an expired or FSBO channel in your business. All right, let's get back to this fascinating episode. Okay, interesting. So I have to assume, man, if you were the first guys in 2012 to really focus on expires or FSBOs, I have to assume something like a home value site, which were you early on that, do you still maybe do that?
Nope. So so keep in mind that everything. Like, we keep outgrowing ourselves, and, like, all the stuff that I should have theoretically said, like, all these people are probably, listening, going like, oh, my gosh, they're so disorganized. Like, it like, literally has just grown so fast out of control that I'm more interested in chasing the deals, as most agents are, and I kind of left all the infrastructure behind because we were really just going so fast. And so now, this year is when I actually have a full-time, staff of 4. I've slowly grown it, 1 per year. That is actually going backwards now and fixing all that stuff, like fixing our internet conversion stuff and fixing our, like you said, our home valuation stuff. And we actually hunt and catch most of our leads ourselves. Very few come in organically saying, hey, please come give us a valuation of our home.
And how do you, so you're out there hunting. What, okay. I want to get to what you're doing with that, but something like, a home value site or playing with Google pay-per-click, you like, it's 2015 and it sounds like you are just now getting into those channels.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And the sad thing is, I'm one of the first ones here doing it. Now, we do the typical, I don't manage any of my own pay-per-click type stuff like that. We have, we buy some through our company's website, that type of stuff. The typical truly is Zillow, Realtor.com leads that everybody else has their fingers into. So none of that's innovative by any means, but our follow-up method is where I bet you we're outpacing anybody else around here for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, and we've all heard that, the fortunes and the follow-up, but it sounds like
right.
you're just a beast, man. You're a guy who's like, I mean, earlier you said, hey, we're not going to stop calling till you list with somebody else or list with us.
Yep.
I mean, do you just
file restraining order or tell me no or file restraining order? Either way, I'm not going to call till you tell me either one.
So is that overall your model with all this stuff? Is just keep running until you catch them or wear them down?
So I said that jokingly. Obviously, we know when a no's a no. We have to leverage our time with who's the effective leads, but we have enough. But yeah, I mean, till they say no, if it's even a remote sniff of a possibility that they're going to interview other agents, then yeah, we're calling them again.
Okay.
And whenever we say we're calling them, we call them half the time. So if we say we'll call you in 30 days, we call them in 15 days.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, I think that, I love that tenacity. I love that persistence. And I think too many people, and I see very successful people doing this, man. Even trainers. I know we've had all the big trainers on this show, and I know many of them personally, and they're very lackadaisical with follow up. I mean, it's amazing. I'm like, oh, hey, why don't you, I'm like, I introduce you to that guy. Like, you got to do more than just call him once. So
you know what? The typical salesperson's impression is that if I call them too many times, they're going to get annoyed with me. And I promise you, if you ask and ask and ask, not one person has ever lost a lead because they followed up too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the opposite. Then you drive by. When you don't follow up is when you drive by and you see your competitor signing the
Right.
order. And you call them and you say, well, you didn't call me back. I didn't think you were interested.
Right. Or you know what? Or even I'll tell you. This is what I do, and sometimes it's to my detriment. So let's say you call me, and I go, oh man, I really like that guy Dan. Right? I might list with him, or relist my expired with him. Here's the deal. I am not going to save your phone number. And I'll remember your first name. And the reason why I'm not going to go and save you in my phone is because I'm expecting that you're going to call me back, and I'm expecting you're going to follow up until I'm ready. Right. And so yeah, no, I think that's
not their job. Not their job.
Exactly right. So that's a great tip for everybody to walk away with. It's just keep following up till you land it. So Dan, what again, I know that you're just now moving into some Google pay-per-click or home value stuff, which maybe spring build, maybe you guys are a little bit behind the curve. That's okay.
For sure.
I think the more you get away from the coast, whether east or west, things start to get a little bit slower in terms of when things hit.
For sure.
What today is working for you in your business?
So first off, I guess we all know this. So we're still huge in that market. We're obviously buying a lot more leads than I thought. And I think I told you before, our business is purely listing based. Obviously, that generates a lot of buyer leads. So you asked me before, and I'll kind of take you down the road that you were asking before. You had kind of. You were kind of interested in the fact that I said we have 7 people on the team, 3 are agents, 4 are admins. I
did want to talk about that, yeah.
Yeah. So my philosophy has always been that real estate's about 60 to 65% admin. The personalities that are really good at selling aren't good at admin, and vice versa. So it's always been about keeping my salespeople and myself in front of people. That's what we're good at. That's all we're good at. We're terrible at paperwork. I don't want to touch it. I'll screw it up. My ladies yell at me when I touch paperwork, or when I open the file, they're like, what do you want? What are you looking for? Get out of here. Don't touch my stuff, basically.
Yeah.
So it has been, so we leveraged off to somebody on the team who had telemarketing managing experience to come in and simply blow up the phone all day long. Her goal is and just set appointments, And so I have my buyer's agent literally goes in the field. She shows 5 houses to buyer number A, and she comes and they know it's going to be her, but they've only communicated with Emily up to this point till they first meet Jen at the door. And Jen runs them through 4 houses, sets them up on a follow-up plan, either writes an offer, finds 4 more houses, basically sets up the follow-up plan. She comes back to the office, she grabs another file, she goes out, she meets another buyer, sees 3 or 4 more houses. So 80-20 rule, right? 80% of our money is made in 20% of our time.
Yeah.
So if you take truly talented people and you keep them in their 20%, 80% of the day, you can exponentially 4 times increase their monetary results, which essentially trickles down to the business owner. So that's what our business model has been set up on.
Okay.
Is a follow-up person, a call person, the lead generator, and salespeople are salespeople. They're not lead generators, and they're not paperwork people.
Yep. Well, and I think you can silo it like that for sure. But let me ask you this: just hearing that. Look, I like that method for sure. I don't have any issues with it. But it seems to me so. Jen, there's Jen and Emily. So Emily's making the appointments. It seems to me that when Emily is 2 things. One, Emily says, okay, hey, do you want to meet with our buyer's agent, Jen? Somebody says, yeah. And they're like, okay, let's come up with a time. Tuesday at 3:00. Okay, great. And then it seems like, I don't know, it seems like it would be a good step to go, okay, hold on a second. We got you down for Tuesday at 3. If you have another 5 minutes, sit tight. I'm going to try to get Jen on the phone. I want to introduce you guys. And it seems like making potentially that early introduction right there, and it would help the transaction.
Higher conversion.
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. Now, don't get me wrong. If we can get them to the office, our first initial appointment, we always try to do an initial sit down on the buyer side, a first initial sit down buyer consultation.
Okay.
It's going to save everybody time, them, us, higher level satisfaction. But sometimes they just want to see houses, and honestly, sometimes they don't care who it is as long as they have access to that lockbox.
On average, how many houses does Jen show those buyers?
Our average used to be 2.2. I'd say it's probably 3.5.
Okay, so that's not too bad. Does she have any parameters in play? I mean, so when Emily is, and I'm sure this is going to help somebody out in the audience, but so when Emily is making that appointment, I know that's her, she has a win when she puts somebody on the calendar. What about all the like the pre-qualification piece and then going over and saying, hey, listen, hold on, is this really in your price range, right? Can you really afford this? And, do you really, what's important to you, neighborhood or a big kitchen, or, you know what I mean? Like, who goes through that? Is it Jen at that first meeting?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So if Jen has time to, obviously, like you said, she will make contact, so Emily's going through the initial pre-qual, and it's simply, great. Have you had an opportunity to talk to a lender yet? Oh, great. Do you have a pre-approval letter? Perfect. You can bring that to our first meeting with you. I mean, if we can get that in writing, we can. We won't show anybody over one, maybe two houses without some kind of evidence, or at least talking to their lender and knowing that, hey, yeah, they're good to go. Because we're not here to chase somebody that obviously is not pre-qualified. So yeah, Emily's going through the pre-quals. What's really, what are your what are your non-negotiables? What are you absolutely not willing to live without? And then what are some things on your wish list? And so and of course, with the, you heard of the internet, I'm sure. We just recently, like a year ago, we heard it here. A lot of these buyers are coming to us with what they have. They've already got their list of 5 houses they want to see. So then we go through their list, and what of these 5 houses is important to you? What is not important? Well, I see this one doesn't really fit that. So we can weed them out. I mean, yeah, absolutely. We're pre-qualified on the phone. And trust me, if they're not pre-qualified on the phone and Jen shows up, I'm here about it. So that's we have very tight parameters on that on because we're not just out goose chasing. We are out to win people over, and we're out to show them that yes, we provide a service, and yes, but we want to help them as their professionals to get the right house. It's not just a tour. Yeah,
right. I was just going to say you're not a tour guide, and I think, so I think there's lots of stuff. I think people in the audience should take number one, take that away, because I think too many people, especially if you're newer, and especially if you don't have a bunch of deals, they're so anxious. Go, yeah, let me put you in my car, and and they're like, oh, I'm working with this buyer, but you know what? They need to go, look, guys, I'll put you in my car, but I know I need you to be serious. And I think the other piece, Dan, and I'd love to get your take on it, is if somebody says, oh, hey, hey, Jen, these are the 5 houses that I'm interested in, and Jen says, why are you interested in this house? And they say, well, it's got a big backyard, or it's close to school. I think another great thing that for a takeaway is for people to go, why, it's got a big backyard. Why is that important to you? Right. Exactly. And maybe so it's to go 1 or 2 levels deeper. So I want to talk, if you can, I had you fill out a quick sheet. And I said, what should we talk about? And you said, hey, most agents, this is what you said, how we handle leads. Most agents don't know their own numbers. You make sure you know your market data, market knowledge, and market numbers. So there's a lot of numbers in here. Tell me your philosophy, your thesis around knowing your market and or numbers.
So I just heard this last week, actually, at a class, and it was kind of, we all have, and this was kind of genius to me, I kind of just hammered this in, but this is how so my business has always been based on numbers, and this came from the building world, and knowing that essentially all businesses, if they're truly businesses, because we're talking real estate, but we're running micro businesses, or we're running some pretty, these are pretty serious businesses.
Absolutely.
If you take them that way. So business essentially, that, we always talk about these different personalities and trying to identify all these different personalities, but at the end of the day, the common language, the common personality, the common thing that we all have in real estate, home buyers, home sellers, the one common denominator with all of us is numbers. That's all we essentially are cutting down to is, and when I say numbers, it could be the sales price, it could be, the commission. It's all, well, the only common language we have is numbers. So I focus on numbers because essentially that's whether people are buying investment property, they want to know, cap rate, they want to know rent amount, they want to know payment amount. Buyers, they want to know numbers. So I just learned to speak in the language of numbers. So whenever I set up to any appointment, obviously I have we have all the buyer conversations, like you said, the pre-qual conversations, the listing pre-qual conversations. But essentially when it gets down to it, and when I get with you face to face, what I'm going to talk about, outside of my conversion scripts and all that, I'm just skipping past all that. The thing that people want to know is market data and market knowledge. I've taught my team, I've taught in classes I've taught around here, and I learned this very, very early. So, and I guess like you were saying earlier, for the people who are newer, I have always said that market knowledge and market data will trump experience any day, because most agents, experienced agents, and honestly, we become complacent.
Oh, yeah.
And you think you're going to walk in, you're going to win on your name, and you walk in and get your teeth kicked in by somebody who's 2 years, because they walked in and they had all the data on the subdivision, they knew the exact data, and they could spit it off the top of their tongue. I don't mean they had it in front of them and can recite it to you. They walked in and they said, house ABC sold
right.
for, 123 Main Street sold for, 97.2% list sales price ratio at, $98 a foot. And so that got ingrained in me pretty early. So essentially everything, it's just a numbers game. It's a numbers game, a contact sport, and everything equates back to a number, and it's conversion ratios. It's a numbers of leads made.
Yep.
So anyhow, that's just a common language.
No, I agree, and I think going back to when it comes to tracking, first of all, numbers. You should know in that subdivision, it's $98 a square foot, and that one got a 10% premium because it had a great garden or some weird. I don't know. It had granite,
Correct.
right, and it's got it. So that's all market inventory you should know. But in terms of numbers, I think everybody should know. Okay, it takes me X. It takes Emily, right? Because you are running a business, right, Dan?
Yep.
You're not. So hey, I know it takes Emily 15 calls to convert or to get a transaction or an appointment.
Yep.
Jen's going to show 2.2 houses and she's going to sell it. I can very much sense that from your building world, right? You got to know how much that 2x4 is, how much that box of screw is, and that paint is trending up, right? So.
Yep.
What are some of the things that you, in addition to market data, what are some of the other numbers or areas that people should track?
Your personal numbers. So people want to know, when you meet with them face to face, what's your success ratio? They don't care how long. Very seldom I get asked how long have you been in the business.
Yeah, right.
And a lot of times they don't ask these numbers, but when I volunteer these numbers, they're impressed. Right? Any statistic can be made to be in your favor. So, I sit down and I talk to them, and so your list to sales price ratio, your days on market versus, and it's always in comparison too, right?
Yeah.
So always compare yourself to the board, compare yourself to, I don't know, Remax, Coldwell Banker, whatever you want to do, whoever your competitor is. The board's average days on market is 78 days. Ours is 52. The average house sells in our market for 96%. List to sales price ratio. Ours is 98.2. So we're going to sell you 30 days faster for 2% more. Is that important to you?
Right. Is that important to you? That's a great question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who's going to say no?
It's all questions. You always phrase it in a question, and nothing that they can say yes or no to. Unless obviously the answer is going to be yes. Nobody said no. That's not important.
So hold on. So Jen, for you, is doing the buyer stuff. Are you still working on the listings? Do you go to listing appointments?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yep.
For you, Dan, what is your unique, sales, what's your USP that wins you 200, got you 255 deals last year?
So that's funny. So if I had to say what's our unique sales proposition, it's just that. It's simply breaking it down. These people, okay, so let's go backwards. These people are interviewing 2 and 3 agents.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what the other agents aren't saying, at least in my market.
Okay.
So like I said, on the unique, so they're not walking in. They are walking in all selling themselves. Okay. That's all they're selling. They're selling their name and their ego. And all these people walk in, I sit down and say the first thing. I said, if you want to hear about me, I'll tell you about me, but this right now is all about you.
Okay.
What your goals are, how fast you want to sell the house, how much money you think we can put in your pocket after sale. Why are you moving? Why are you? And it's finding their level of motivation and finding their big why as to how I can help them through this transition. So our unique sales pitch really just goes back to that. And I break it down and say, look, I'm going to tell you right now, I know these other people said they have it. I don't have a magic wand to real estate. I can't. All I can tell you is numbers. I can tell you why the market's doing what it's doing. I can tell you our average days to sales price ratio and our average days on the market. I can't promise that to you. Mm-hmm. If you listen to me and follow me, though, these are what our averages are, and they are for the people, and we're 85% of houses that we list, we sell, and we sell them at 98%, so it's numbers, and I realize I'm kind of just spewing that at you over and over.
No, that's good. I mean, listen. I mean, look, people are driving in their cars, right? They're walking their dog. I mean, that's fine. You're doing great. And I think going back to numbers, I think one of the things, if the agents are going in there, and I've seen a billion listing presentations, and there's so much overlap. It's crazy, and I think people need to, number one, make their stuff their own, right? Because you know what, if I'm going to interview 3 listing agents, the guy that's different is the guy or girl I'm going to hire. And I think what you were unpacking there, Dan, is the idea of being a trusted real estate advisor as against just somebody who's going to sell, trying to go in there, hey, I've been doing this for 15 years and I know this or whatever. And I think part of being that, and I'm talking too much. This is your show.
No, I love it.
I want to get your take. I think an important piece in that listing presentation would be like, hey, hold on, before we even get to, how much you can get, how much do you own the house, right? Let's talk about your equity. Let's help me, act as a financial advisor, because this is the biggest, financial thing that somebody's going to do.
Well, and even if they're not business people and if they're not in the business world, everybody wants to play business owner. So if you sit down with them and say, look, we've talked about all the emotion of why you're selling. I know you raised your 3 kids here, but let's face it, now we have to talk some business. And you've obviously had some business exposure, and you're obviously a savvy business person. So when we talk about business, we're just going to talk about numbers now. They just stroke their ego. They may be terrible. Maybe they filed 3 times in a banco, but now I've stroked their ego, and now they now they want to act businessman. This is our approach, this is our business approach, and this makes business sense to you, right? So I just took the emotion completely out of it. There's no emotion in this. This is purely numbers based, and this is why they can't argue with the numbers. Yeah, you just can't.
So wow, okay, and what about you have? Do you have something specific or interesting or unique about the way you do lead management or the way you handle leads?
I wouldn't say that it's unique. It's just a utilization. I mean, everybody has access to the same tools that we used. It's just the fact that we actually use them.
Got it.
Well, and it's terrible, but we didn't initially. I'm not going to lie to you, but it was very. We've had to convert from entrepreneurial purposeful because we were just flying by the seat of our pants. And I think every agent naturally, most agents, I would argue, naturally fall into that, at least initially in their careers. Yeah. Now we're trying to turn purposeful. And so, we're just linking into top producer, but I'm not going to lie, we just had Excel spreadsheets, and we had a bunch of them, and they were annoying. And, of course, we had great staff that knew how to put them together, because I don't. So it was just spreadsheets that we tracked everything with. And amazing. Yep.
Well, okay. Well, look. I mean, you've done 5 years in the business. 250. I mean, you've done extremely well for yourself, Dan. What's next on what's on the horizon for you, and how are you going to get there?
Obviously our goals increase every year. If you're not growing, you're dying. We have, as far as position wise, my ISA, I call it now, internal sales agent, which is Emily, is transition into an office manager position. You can't transition to another position until you find your replacement. So now we're trying to find another full-time, essentially caller, lead developer, cultivator developer. With that, like I said, we have full-time marketing people, we have full-time contract close people, but it's now adopting the junior listing agent and junior buyer's agent underneath. So going on a different split. So basically they will be, I've hired a listing agent and I have a buyer specialist, and they both work under me and they're on a split with me. Well, now I'm going to get them somebody on a split with them. Like my buyer's agent last year, just straight buyer sides did 75 buyer side deals last year.
Wow.
Exactly. Most people across the nation know that the 48 is probably the average a buyer's agent can do a year. A good buyer's agent did 75. Why? Because we kept her in her 20% all the time. So now, though, she needs somebody to start helping her. She has too many, we have too many people wanting to look at houses. So it's finding somebody to put on a 50-50 split with her. so that the house still makes its money, and it's just leveraging more people. The best investment anybody can ever make is a person. So I think that I was talking to somebody today about this. We as agents get hung up on commission splits. Well, gosh, I'm only going to get 0.75% of this transaction. No, you're going to make $80,000 a year.
Right.
The commission talk shouldn't be had. Most people don't understand that. We talk about it because we know it and we understand it. But so the new model is we're going to hire junior showing assistants, junior listing specialists underneath who I currently have, and hopefully that switches to 500 within about 3 years.
Okay. So 500 in 3 years. So you're going to be doing a ton of recruiting. Okay, that's great, man. Look, I'm gonna ask. We're gonna wrap up. Here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to ask you a crazy question, just because I want to make sure that I get. Sometimes I don't ask the right question. So here's a crazy question. It's this: what's something, Dan, I should have asked you that I didn't ask you?
Oh gosh. I think I pretty much spilled my guts, but I think I guess probably the only thing if I had to rehash on. Well, I don't know. It's just the one thing you can't teach anybody, and successful people versus unsuccessful people understand this. One thing you can't teach is motivation. It's finding the motivated, and I mean in employees, it's in sellers and buyers. Whether you find a motivated seller or an unmotivated seller, it still costs you the same amount of time, same amount of money. So just continually find a way to find the motivated and act like your pants on fire and act like you don't have any money next month, and that's a pretty unique motivator.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. How about this? Who has been your mentor? A couple. My mentor, well, first of all, it's my dad. My dad just retired with about 25 houses paid off. My dad never made $1 over $30,000 a year in his life. And he's making about $20,000 a month now, just off the. So, as far as investment wise, he obviously worked harder than anybody I know. In real estate, a good friend of mine named Adam Grady, he was in real estate. He came in, he was just somebody that I jumped in his hip pocket, and when I had nothing to do but time, I just jumped in the car with him and followed him around. It was probably a wee bit annoying for him. Right. But, I always look at people who are doing more units or more volume than you and find a way to stick around them. I've heard this one time, if you ever want to know where you're at, I hope I don't mess this up. If you ever know where you're going to be at in 5 years, look at the 5 people you're closest to right now in the books that you're reading, and that's where you'll be at 5 years. So find those people and hang around those people. If you can soar with the eagles or run with the turkey, it's your choice. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's a Jim Rohn quote, right? You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Right.
Whether that's your fitness, your health, or your bank account. So, Dan, I'm going to ask you. I want to know what you're reading. So I'm going to ask you for a book, but I know you're a KW person, so you cannot. Gary's books are off the table. So here's the setup. I'm an aspiring agent. I have $25. What book should I go get today?
Number one, I go and grab this. This is going to sound a little silly, but everybody's always said this, but go and grab the Nordstrom's book. And I don't remember exactly which one I have on my desk. I went to Amazon, found Nordstrom's book. It's just about customer service. It's just about how to have outstanding customer service throughout the entire transition. There was another book that was actually written about Hilton and how they treat a client when a client walks up. Learn how to address people by their names. Everybody likes to hear their name over and over. Ours are all customer service based right now that we're reading on our team. I'm not going to lie. They're not about general business. Obviously, we all know there's a top 10 business list out there that we're looking at. But right now, we're focusing on the customer related. There's one on Disney right now that I'm reading.
Yeah. Hey, listen. Can I give you? I'll give you one. I don't know. This is all customer service. Tony Hsieh's Delivering Happiness.
Okay.
This is a story of Zappos.
Okay.
And listen, if you wanted to get any of those books, Delivering Happiness by Tony Hsieh, you can get a free copy on us. Just go to audibletrial.com/superagentslive. Hey, Dan, my last question for you is, do you have any personal habits that you feel has contributed to your success?
Silly, yes. Number one is an exercise plan. You cannot maintain. So exercise and diet to me is the absolute. And I'm by no means a fitness pro, so I don't want you to think that. And if you look at me, you would think I exercise or eat good. But a routine exercise plan keeps the energy up. It builds the endorphins. You stay high all day long, literally.
Yeah.
And obviously what you eat. If you're ingesting a ton of carbs at lunch, you're crashing at 3 o'clock. You have no energy. You'd rather go. Honestly, those are my two best habits. Outside of that, time blocking. Walk in the morning, know what you're doing every day from 9 to 11, know what you're doing for lunch, and know that your appointment times are, 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock, whatever they are. The people who will make the most money in this industry are those who can master repetitious boredom, and they just do the same thing over and over and over again.
I agree.
It's not flashy. It's not exciting.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I'll tell you on that whole workout and eating right thing, that's Tony Robbins' thing. He's like, if you can't have self-mastery, there's no way you're going to master whatever business you're in. So, hey, well, listen, Dan, here's what I always suggest. I encourage my audience, if they've gotten anything out of this episode, I always encourage them to reach out to you, find you, and say thank you. And look, maybe somebody's going to hear this and go, hey, I want to join Dan's team. I want to, I can be his new, appointment setter or whatever. So where can people reach out and find you, Dan?
So obviously, Springfield, Missouri, if anybody out there ever comes through. But email Dan Holt Holmes, Homes, not HOLMES, Dan Holt Holmes @gmail.com. Cell number 417-300-3001, 300-3001.
Awesome.
Feel free to call anytime or to email. I'd love to make some connections out there.
Cool. Yeah. And listen, everybody, if you're driving, walking the dog, whatever you're doing, you can get all the stuff. It'll be on the show notes. Just go to superagentslive.com and we'll have that right under Dan Holt. And Dan, look, I'll be the first guy to start that thank you chain off. Thanks for taking the time out, man. I know you have a lot going on and you're super busy, so I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you for the time. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it.
All right. We'll talk soon.
Thanks.
That's it.
Let's go.